When you meditate, it's good to keep a large perspective because it's so easy to get frustrated. Here you are looking at the breath. And as John Lee says, just 4 concentrations, and you can't master them. The mind keeps slipping off. No matter how determined you are to stay with the breath, you suddenly find yourself someplace else. And a lot of times it doesn't seem that the meditation is heading in any particular direction. It's kind of mucking around. You wonder, what does this have to do with the deathless? What does this have to do with anything related to true happiness? That's when it's time to step back and look at the larger perspective. And the big issue, of course, is your mind. Because no matter where you live, no matter where you go, you've got the mind right there. And if you can't keep it under any kind of control at all, you're living with something very dangerous. Because all kinds of things can happen to it. A slight chemical imbalance in the body, and the mind gets really depressed. It can't seem to pull itself out of the depression. Or it starts hallucinating. All kinds of things the mind can do. All kinds of things the brain can do. And it's important to keep a distinction there, the mind and the brain. The brain is the physical organ. And the part of the mind we're interested in is just basic awareness. And we use the organ to think, but if the organ is damaged in any way, out of balance in any way, our thoughts can become our enemies. What are you going to do then? If you have the mindfulness to be able to pull yourself out of your thought worlds, then you're safe. If you have the mindfulness to pull yourself out of anything that the mind does, you're safe. We talk about the mind clinging or the mind hanging on to things. Well, it doesn't have hands to cling. When it clings to something, it means it just keeps thinking about it over and over and over again. Keeps wanting it over and over and over again. And to let go of the clinging means that you just pull out of it. You let it stop. And the only way you can let it stop is to get out of it and see it simply as an event in the mind. The last time I went to visit with Ajahn Suwat before he passed away, he commented that his brain was sending him all sorts of weird messages. And he'd learned that he'd had to put a question mark after everything he came into his mind. But he said, that thing I gained from the practice, he said, that hasn't gone away. That thing was what enabled him to pull out of those messages in order to see that there were strange, weird messages, but he didn't have to believe them. He had a foundation. So even as the brain was wandering around with weird perceptions, he was sitting in a spot mentally where he didn't have to get involved. And that's what we're working on here. It's protection, a safe place to keep our awareness based. And that's worth all kinds of effort, all kinds of discouragement, all the things we have to go through in order to get there. Because the real sense of solidity, the real sense of safety that comes with that, it's more than you can imagine. You realize how long you've been wandering around, misled by your thoughts, and how totally deluded you were, and how much suffering there was. When you can step out, really step out, it's an enormous burden lifted. Both the sense of solidity in the present moment at that point, and the confidence that nothing can touch this because it's outside of space and time. As for what's going to happen inside of space and time, well, that's a matter of karma. Even awakened people have to age, grow ill, and die. But they found the part of the mind that doesn't age, doesn't grow ill, doesn't die. And how do they find it? By doing what we're doing right now. Every time a thought comes up, here's your chance. Are you going to fall for the thought, or are you going to step back from it? The thoughts may be crazy, and there may be things you don't want to think about, but as long as you're able to step back from them, you're in a good position. This place where you're stepping back may not be as totally solid as you like it, but it's heading you in the right direction. Because if you don't have this, you have no safety at all. There's no protection at all. No perspective at all. And without the perspective, there's no wisdom, there's no insight. And without insight, you're totally immersed in delusion. And what is it like to be totally deluded? You're totally unsure of things. Deep down inside, things don't seem quite right. And there's always that element of fear. As the Buddha said, as long as you don't know the true Dharma, there's always the fear of death. What's going to happen when you die? The only way you can know is by looking at the process of the mind, because it's actually going through death and birth on a small level all the time. It just keeps coming back, coming back, coming back. Whatever habitual patterns you've been encouraging in the mind, they just keep coming back again and again and again. But the fortunate thing, again, is that you can step back. This is what the Buddha's teachings on karma are all about. Not everything is determined in the mind. With every present moment,